Francesca. Here we go, coming up here. Francesca is the Chief Product Officer of Hemnet from Sweden. And today she's going to talk about Hemnet's win-win proposition, achieving sustainable growth and unlocking future potential. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. No pressure here. The best starting of the day ever. So I'll see if I keep you entertained with this. And I'm gonna talk and start off this market leader session of the conference today talking about Hemnet and our growth journey. My aim today is to share how we work with both product and business development to create alignment of interest in our industry and fuel our growth. My idea is really that you should leave here with some inspiration, possibly, that you can take back home and actually apply to your companies. But for that to be true, I have to give you some context. Because, of course, what we did really worked for us. So it's important to understand a little bit more about Hemnet, to understand why those things work for us. And if we start with me, I'm Francesca. I'm CPO, so leading product at Hemnet. I've been there since 2019, and I've been a part of the growth journey that has led the company up to our IPO in 2021. My background, it's on product development. I work in product for more than 10 years with different kind of companies, and Hemnet is the first one in real estate. And if we go to Hemnet, is there anyone here that comes from Sweden? One there. So this is going to be redundant probably for you, but for everyone else. Hemnet is Sweden's #1 and undisputed destination for housing. We have some number here. 9 out of 10 properties that is sold in Sweden are published on our platform. The most impressive one, I think it's the last one, is 19 times the amount of viewings that our listing have compared to the second competitor. And my favorite one is the 30 minutes. That is a per capita number, meaning that every single Swede that is older than 16 years old spend 30 minutes per month on Hemnet. So those are really big numbers, and those are even bigger if you think about that we don't have rental. This is purely buy and sell. So it's really #1 platform for buying and selling. And you might be thinking, how are these even numbers true? And this is a bit of a context about our business. The first one in Sweden, we have a really stable, efficient, and uniquely favorable market for 2 reasons mainly. One, it's because our rental market is quite dysfunctional. So people actually have to buy for living. So buying for living is why you buy a property. You don't buy for speculation, you don't buy for renting out, meaning that the market is led by real demand. So people will always have to move because things happen in their life. And that's the demand that fuels our business. The second one is that we have a seller-paid model, and I will go a little bit deeper in what that means. That is not unique to Hemnet. We have other peers in the industry that have a seller-paid model, like ARPL in Australia is the most famous one. But one unique part is that agents are partners, and we have a reseller program with them, making Hemnet a revenue center for agents and not a cost center. And that is quite unique in the industry. And last but not least, our commercialization journey has just begun. And before we go into giving all the what is behind our growth, I also want to spend a couple of minutes talking about our business model, because this is really important to understand how we fuel our growth. As any marketplace or any property portal, you will recognize the actors that are here. You have buyers, sellers, you have real estate agencies, and obviously market leader also capitalize on the traffic dominance with other kind of partners. What is unique, and I want you to look at, it's the top part of that square there. So sellers, you see, directly pay us. It's literally like I'm gonna go into that, like a direct payment flow for them. Those money then are going to get back to the agencies in form of administration and sales commission. This is what I mean when I say that we are a revenue center, because we give money back to the agents. And then this money, it's used back to pay our product. So it's really like a really nice ecosystem that we get going there. So keep that in mind while I walk you through our journey. And we're gonna go into two parts of our journey. The first part is what we did to start our growth that led to our IPO in 2021. And the second part is like what lies ahead. How are we planning to grow even further going from there? So let's kick it off. I said that we just started our commercial journey, but what does that mean? You might be wondering. I'm gonna show you this. The line there is the net sales of the company Hemnet. Hemnet was founded in 1998 by the broker industry. That year, many property portals were created in the entire Europe. I guess there are many of you that work in a company founded in 1998. And the broker industry was extremely innovative, and they disrupted the whole marketing on newspaper, making the whole process digital. And Hemnet has been an initiative from the broker for a very long time. And it was the broker that decided in the first date they are yellow, 2013. So only 10 years ago, they started to charge for listing. The decision they took there is to make the property seller pay. Why was that? They didn't want to eat into their own commission. And so they find another way, so the seller will pay the portal without touching their own commission. And that is where our business model was created. Then if you look at that, you have another yellow date, 2019, that is also connected with a stepping up of the curve of the sales. And this is one of the first things that fuel our growth. And it is creating value-added services. For many years, Hemnet has had only one way of listing on Hemnet. So we had one listing, same visibility, we call it Hemnet base, meaning that even though the seller were paying, they were all paying for the same thing. And that was really static. But what we saw as a possibility, and we had a big hypothesis here, the sellers are the ones paying, and they are going through the real estate transaction in Sweden every 6 or 7 years. They're also super willing to invest more to make their property sale successful. So we should be giving them more possibility. That's where we expanded our portfolio. So from 2019 to 2023, so only in the past 4 years, we created 3 new ways of listing, Hemnet Base, Hemnet Plus, and Hemnet Premium. That gives you different visibility of listing, and we created 2 Boost products. So we created this portfolio, but what is behind creating this portfolio is creating actually a win-win proposition for sellers. As I said, our main hypothesis that we proved true is that sellers are more willing to invest. So what we did is started to product develop those packages, thinking how we can make them increase and make sure that they increase visibility. You've seen that first screenshot on the left, that you have different screen real estate in our result list, which is the most powerful tool we have on our platform. We also see, if you see that label that says premium, that was a way of educating our seller that we have different way of listing. So actually making them understand that they can impact their sale. And then most likely the most innovative thing we did is showed on the screenshot on the right. We created what you might call an e-commerce checkout, digital, for the seller. So they can directly pay and choose the package when they list. And why is this important? In Sweden, the time for selling a property is really short. It's 30, 40 days. So if you want them to really impact their sale, they need to do it directly. So that's where we made that happen, to create that checkout. And while we did all this product development, that of course wasn't done in a day, but I mean, it was done throughout 1.5 years, we saw happening something that in product we call product market fit, meaning that we saw a lot of sellers upgrading. So going from the base listing that we have had since 20 years to upgrading and buying this product, which actually allowed us to create a good platform to take our next move. And the next move is introducing segmented pricing. As many of you probably, we had one fixed price list for all our listing that was updating once a year. Back in the days, we even had a press release about price changes, but that was not at all connected with, sellers paying for something that they do every 6 years. It was more connected with the brokers. So we thought that, as many more sellers were upgrading, we started to introduce a new concept. We want to perfectly match the seller and the price of that property in that specific moment. Therefore, we created this flexibility. And our aim is really to match as good as possible market dynamics on demand and supply, the value that we provide, the extra value that we provide in our value-added services. And of course, we test this continuously. Adding this stretch in the price, I'm going to show you something that is illustrative as an example. We went from one price list for 3 prices, maybe plus base plus and premium, to being able to stretching those pricing a lot, and actually being able to coming closer to our vision of having any single price point to any single seller, because that's what we want, and they are really willing to pay because they do that every 6th year. So those two components, product development and pricing, so creating value into the product and being able to extract this value through pricing, was really what fueled our growth. You see here that we were able to consistently deliver 20+% growth. You see on the graph on the right the contribution to plus and premium, so our value-added services. And maybe the most important thing for the ones that pay attention is that our ARPL, which is average revenue per listing, doesn't have a ceiling. You might think that this is like numbers that grow and that are impressive, obviously, but we think that there's much more. We have a North Star, which is REA in Australia, which has a really similar business models as we do. They are able to capture actually 3-4 times the value that we do from our listing. So that is what we're thinking. The more value we can bake in with our product, the more we can extract. And here it's an example that we actually can do it. So if those two things led up to the IPO, what's lying ahead? How are we making sure that we're actually pushing this ARPL so that we don't have a ceiling? And to do that, we kind of thinking about our products and our product development and how can we create this value and this alignment of interest. We worked a lot with sellers and creating product from them in the beginning, and that was like really key for the growth in the beginning. But while we were working with it, we discovered something else. And this, what we discovered, its sellers are of course important, is our differentiator, we should keep on leveraging them. But they also expect to keep it like hand in hand during the most stressful transaction of their life. And this is where we understood that we needed to work much, much more with agents. Agents and seller together are the two components for us to create win-win and fuel our business. And agents are in the driving seat when it comes to recommending marketing to their seller, so to recommend our product. So the question that we had to ask ourselves was, how do we create win-win with agents? And here we go back to this that I showed you in the beginning, our business model, where we have that yellow arrow there. that revenue center that we had, the commission and administration fee, we thought we are giving money back. So how is this not completely working? What is lacking here? And what we realized is we had to think back and really create alignment of interest. So we reviewed our commission and administration model. What we had before is what you see on the left there. We have an admin fee for every single listing, and then we have a flat 20% commission for recommending all our value-added services, which, no matter what you did, you always get the same. What we realized is that if we wanted to push the broker to align and recommend our value-added services, which were and are the fuel of our growth, we needed to create another structure. And that's what we did. We created 3 levels. So depending on how much you recommend, you will get more commission back, so you will get more money back. That's really a way. They win, we win, the seller win, everyone wins. It's a performance-based compensation, which is a model that brokers understand, as they work a lot with that in Sweden. And also, it's a voluntary thing. So you might opt in, but you don't need to opt in. So it's up to you. When we did this, we realized 2 things. 1 in 3 listing got a recommendation, and especially 2 of 3 sellers who got a recommendation followed it. So this became another level of getting more sellers to upgrade. So here you see the importance of agents, the importance of aligning interests, and even the potential, because we still have a lot of agents that can recommend and still more sellers that can follow that recommendation. So we had agents. We also want to highlight that sellers has been, will be, and still is a growth for us. And how do we work with product development for them? I have 2 examples that we have done during this year, 2023. Because in Sweden, and most likely in many of your countries as well, the market has changed. So we shifted from a seller market in Sweden. Strangely enough, during COVID, it was extremely hot market. A lot of transactions, many more transactions than the years before. And we shifted with inflation, a lot of interest rate and everything, instead to a buyer market. So what we did is we adjusted our seller product. We baked into our top-tier package, republishing, meaning the possibility of publishing again for free. That is packaged as insurance for seller, but also for agents. That's because in Sweden we have an exclusive mandate. So once you won the mandate, then you have an extra chance to sell, even if the market is not ideal. And this, again, created a win-win, because sellers wanted to have the extra insurance. Brokers started to recommend much more, and we got more sellers to upgrade. And another move we made during the year, also connected with macroeconomics and the climate out there, is that we introduced flexibility in payment. As I described in the beginning, sellers pay directly for a listing on Hemnet. And that's a strength, right? Because you want to impact directly your property sale. But it could also become a problem or a hinder when the economic situation is not the best and maybe you don't have the cash in your hand. So we got this feedback, and we introduced the flexibility of paying either directly on when you take off the listing from our platform, which again helps seller, but also helps broker recommending our product and lower the friction to publish on Hemnet. And if you think about it, thinking about future growth, thinking about how to close the gap between Hemnet and REA, leveraging sellers and agents is a never-ending game, because we have so many more possibilities in front of us. We can labor more with payment timing. We can think about other seller needs, like, for example, sellers that want to test the market and don't go straight into a direct sale, and so on and so on. So the possibilities are endless. So to summarize, what can you take with you from our journey, and how can you apply it to your business? 3 tips from me. The first one is align your business with your industry dynamics. For us, it was about the seller-paid model. But that is not the only way. I would urge you to think about how can you create win-win with the different parts of the industry that you operate with. The second part, and I'm obviously biased on this, product development. I mean, for us, product development and working strategically with product development was really what fueled our growth. If you think about it, like creating a portfolio of products, working with pricing, working with seller needs, this is what makes sure that we don't have an ARPL ceiling. This is what makes sure that we keep on growing. So how can you use your product development in that sense? And last but not least, to future-proof your growth, you need to think about the main actors in your market, how to create win-win for them, and how to make sure that you actually give them ways of solving their problems. Because if you do that, if you add value, that you can extract value from there. So that's really how can you create win-win, and how can you use product development to fuel your innovation. That's what I had. Here's like my LinkedIn if you want to connect. I also have a website when I write about how we product develop at Hemnet if you're curious. We have a time for Q&A, and I'll be around the entire day today. So if you want to ask me a question, just grab me, and I'm going to be happy to chat. Thank you.
Francesca, thank you very much. Fantastic to see how you're growing the business. Some questions. Let's start with the second one first. How much better do premium products perform versus regular listings?
That's a really good question. I cannot say exactly the numbers, but we have 2 main things that we looked at when comparing our value-added services and make sure that they deliver more. One is how much more they're viewed. So the impression or like the clicks they get compared to other listing. And that is driven a lot by the exposure in the result list. So that's one part. And the other part that we measure is how much faster a property sell compared to other. And there we also have indication that if you buy value-added services, you're gonna sell your property faster, which is basically the 2 value that we give back to both sellers and agents.
Okay. There was a question here which I want to work on, is what is the key factor for defining the price of each seller? Is it property location and price, or is there something else?
There are, when I talk about segmented prices, it's because we create different segments. And those segments are obviously defined by property type. So if it's an apartment, a villa, or a detached house, or whatever. Location. So if you are like center Stockholm or you are in the middle of nowhere, and property price. So these 3 factors are the ones that create the first segments, and those can be segmented a lot. And then we're also, as we product develop that part, we're also thinking about adding new components to those segments.
Okay. How come Hemnet does not deal in rental properties?
Making a really, really long story short, it's because in Sweden, rental market, it's extremely complicated. You are not, there is like state-owned rentals, and those are basically impossible to get into in big cities. So basically you cannot, those have like prices that are defined, but impossible to get. And then you are not allowed by law to buy an apartment to let. So the entire rental is extremely complex, which makes it basically impossible to rent, and that's why people buy instead of renting, because they need somewhere to live, especially in big cities.
Fascinating. As CPO, how do you see the short and medium-term role of AI?
That's a good question, and it's one that we are thinking about today, as probably many, many of you. I think of AI in 2 components, at least at this point. One part is how can we use AI generally in the company. There are some parts that you can use AI to make more effective. or efficient. One thing connected with product development is, for example, code reviews. That's like a user case that is really, you make it more efficient and you use your developer brain and power to do the complicated stuff. Another part, which all of us, I think, are thinking about is how AI will impact customer experience. As those big companies out there, Google and everyone else around, ChatGPT, etc., are really adding a new component to how consumers expect to search. And that will most likely impact a lot of property portals. But those are the two areas that we are looking into.
Okay, one last question. What percentage of commissions do agents get from selling a home? And is there a buyer and seller agent or just sellers agents?
If we start, if we start from the last one, so the agents in Sweden have exclusive mandate, and they're both the buyer and seller, and they should represent buyers and seller by law. So there's one agent that does that. And the percentage of the commission is the one that I showed you. We have a fixed fee for every listing. That is basically to administer the listing. We call it administration fee, to make sure that we get all the data, the picture, etc. And then they are paid based on the performance of the office. So that's like the 3 steps.
Okay. And I think the other part of that question is how much when they sell a home, is it a 2, 3, 4, 5%?
Oh, okay. The commission of the broker in Sweden is around 2%.
Okay. Fantastic.
So it's a small one compared to many other countries.
And what's interesting is when you use Australia and REA as a benchmark, is the similarities. It's 2% commission in Australia, 2% commission in Sweden, and then you're trying to get the money from the seller on top. And the one fundamental difference is that the seller is paying you in Sweden, where in Australia, all the real estate agents are actually a sales force for REA and Domain.
Correct.
And they're paying the real estate agents who then pay REA and Domain. So REA and Domain have a very large sales force working for them. So I love what you guys are doing. It's very, very fascinating and well done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
This?
And I need this.